Hey everybody, TJ here with a quick note before we start the show. Just wanted to let you know that we will be off next week. We're taking a week off for the Thanksgiving holiday to spend some time with family, and it's normally a slow news week anyways. So we'll be out for a week. We'll be back though with a new episode for you on December the 8th. All right, enjoy the show. This week on Front End Fire, we have yet another VS Code fork to discuss, but this time it is from Google. Uniwind, which is hard to pronounce, makes Tailwind styling easier for React Native devs. And we'll talk about the Rust versus TypeScript debate continuing. There's also a crazy Angular video. We got some cool stuff. Let's do it. Hey everybody, welcome to Front End Fire, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on the latest and the greatest in the front-end world. I am your host today, TJ Van Tol. I have Paige Niedringhaus with me.
Hey, everybody.
And from the road, I've got Jack Harrington.
Hey, happy to be here from Miami. Miami.
Yes.
Cool stuff. Well, we got a lot of, a lot of smaller things this week, and I guess one or two bigger things. So why don't we do this?
Let's do this.
All right, Jack, you want to kick us off? I hear there's a new Prisma release.
Yeah, V7. I always like V7s. I mean, it's a good number just in general. But yeah, V7. I actually talked to the guy, like the lead architect of this for the LogRocket podcast. And that's definitely worth a watch or listen if you are into the Prisma stuff. They've done a bunch of cool stuff. So he's kind of like cleaning stuff up in a trajectory towards the future. And so one of the things, for example, was they no longer hack node modules, which is kind of, good.
Yeah, that's good.
They should have never done that in the first place. They're also changing around how you do your configuration stuff. So it's a bit less magic-y, which is great. And then the whole bundle is a lot smaller, and that's actually one of the reasons why it's smaller is they are no longer shipping a Rust version of their V7 of their Prisma engine. So this is like the thing that actually goes through and does all of the ORM mapping and figures out tables to queries and all that kind of thing. They're actually moving back to TypeScript, which is pretty interesting. So I thought we could talk about that for a second. And we've always thought oh man, everything's going to Rust, with V0, Void Zero and all that, whatever Ox stuff and all that. Now, are we going backward? What? What's the deal?
I think what you see with a lot of these tools is the traditional hype cycle. So at some point we realize somebody, I don't remember who was the first, but realized that, hey, we're building all of these tools in TypeScript. They'd be a lot faster if they ran in Rust. And that sort of started this wave of everything is built in Rust. We got to rebuild. We got to build these things as Turbo Pack. We got to start entire companies around these Rust-based tools. And a lot of that was warranted because tools that are mission critical, really in the hot path, very much benefit from being faster. But there's a point at which if you're building in Rust, it's also way less friendly for a team or a group of people if they're more familiar with writing in JavaScript or TypeScript. So it's the classic software developers dilemma of, do we optimize for speed or do we optimize for maintainability? And I think we're starting to end up at the more rational side after the end of this, where some things that are very important and in a very important part of the tool chain are still going to be built in Rust. But if you're not in that absolute mission critical path, you're lots of times better off just building for maintainability and speed of development. And if it's a little bit slower, you know what? Usually that's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that you're absolutely right. Everybody suddenly jumped on the bandwagon. So your ESLint was being rebuilt in Rust. Prettier was being rebuilt in Rust. Everything was just being rebuilt in Rust that could be. And you're exactly right. Is that really slowing them down in the development process? Is it because ESLint is taking a minute longer to index your giant repo and tell you that there's problems with whatever file you have open? I don't know. I've used Prisma in the past, not the newest one, obviously, but I never thought to myself, wow, Prisma's really slow. I wish it was faster. Never, never thought that. I thought it was
Yeah.
great. I really enjoyed like the developer experience. It was so great to just write these files and then have it create tables. Like it was really nice. But I never thought to myself, man, Prisma's really slow. This is terrible. I wish it was written in Rust so that it would go faster. So,
Because you're not running
yeah.
it all the time. You're really only running it when you like you make a
Yeah,
change to the schema, and then
exactly.
it's like, oh, okay, we're generating now. So it's not even like it's actually easier in terms of performance than like a lint, which is something
Hmm.
you run on every CI/CD slash whatever, right? But
Exactly.
yeah, and the other thing about this is if you want to have modularity, like if you want people to be able to extend your thing and like, oh, I'm gonna create a plugin for blah 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 for Prisma, whatever.
Hmm.
It's a lot harder to find people who want to write a plugin in Rust than it is who
Yeah.
want to like just do the same do it in TypeScript. So yeah,
And I think that's the major other thing is like Rust was never like high on the web developer tool chain of things to learn
no,
before this started to happen. You know, maybe you were a full stack dev and you knew Python or you knew Java or you knew Go as well. But if you're just a typical web developer, I mean, I will try to do everything in JavaScript and TypeScript before I'll reach for another language, and especially Rust is not the first one that I would think of.
Rust is
Yeah, Rust is
brutality in comparison to TypeScript. It is just brutal. Yeah,
Yeah, and even in the AI world, I mean, it's still, you still want to be able to understand the code that you're writing, especially for some of these tools are quite complex, right? Where understanding what's going on and having a lay of the land is pretty important. And you know, I think we're reaching a sort of healthy balance with this thing
Yeah.
moving
quick
forward.
aside,
Yeah.
actually, it's kind of funny. I was giving a lecture on MCP yesterday, and one of the teams in this company had their own MCP server and like super proud of it. And I'm like, so what's it written in? Can we see the code? And they're like, it's an Elixir. It's like Elixir.
What?
Okay. I know Elixir, but like I mean I know of Elixir.
I've
Never
never
Hmm.
heard of it.
actually.
That's where
Yeah.
I'm at. Yeah.
Right. But
Yeah,
like
that's a
wow,
choice.
that's a choice. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Jack, one question about Prisma. As someone, I don't delve into the database world very often. Is this like does this compete with Tanstack DB? Can you help like lay out where these things fit in to help me get a better picture of these?
Sure. So this is an object relational mapping system. So basically, the idea is if you want to go and if you want to have one code base that could talk to MySQL or Oracle or Postgres or Mongo, actually, even, this allows you to do that. So basically, you write a schema in a neutral way, and it then says, okay, cool, I'm targeting, I don't know, MySQL.
Yeah,
And
MySQL,
then it
whatever. Yeah.
writes the MySQL native SQL for that and optimizes it and all that. And that's actually like a lot of what was in that big old, Rust furball is all that kind of optimization for each one of the different vendors. And that's why they're trying to actually get it out of Rust so that they can then kind of support more vendors and do it more
Hmm.
easily and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so yeah, I think there's a lot in this space. There's like Drizzle is also in this space.
Hmm.
Yeah, but TanSecDB, I don't know, it's a weird name because it's not actually at all related in any way to that. TanSecDB is its own, like, when you think about like a Firebase, so it's like one of those
Hmm.
real-time databases where you actually like subscribe to it. So you got one, subscription to users, and then you mutate users and add a user. Well, that subscription automatically fires, and it's just a super nice way to interact
Yeah.
with a
So it's more
DB.
like
Yeah, sorry.
yeah. So TanSecDB is more about a model for just working with a DB, but not actually in the DB itself. Whereas Prisma is
Right.
actually yeah, it's
Yeah, it's
actually
not
in
going to
there in the
write
nitty gritty.
queries for you, any of that. It is going to do the real time sync between the server and the client, and also do some offline syncing as well. So the two would make a nice pairing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Next on our list, Paige, Uniwind.
Yes.
Uh,
The name makes me laugh, but it makes sense. Uniwind is released by the company or the team that makes Unistyles. And Uniwind if you can't tell by the name, is bringing Tailwind style class name support to React Native. And typically, when this has been done in the past, it's kind of a very janky hacking together of forcing Tailwind into React Native. But Uniwind does it at build time instead of at runtime.
Hmm.
So it's much faster. They have a custom high performance CSS parser, which can parse the latest Tailwind for syntax and plain CSS files. So if your team is already using CSS or some other, some other version of it, it works with both. You can just use the same Tailwind classes and utilities in your React Native app that you would use on the web. So if you're familiar with building web apps and using Tailwind, this should translate very seamlessly. And just some of the perks are that it supports the class name syntax out of the box. It makes multi-theming simple. So if you have an app that has light mode, dark mode, custom themes, it makes that really simple and easy to use. And it is 2.5 times faster, because we care about this, than native wind. Because we have to have those performance
The
stats.
native wind, Uniwind wars are on.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and it is because of the what I just said, the build time caching. They have a Nitro module pipeline, which we've talked about in the past, Nitro. Yeah, and it just avoids the runtime style parsing. So there's less happening once the app is open because it's already been built ahead of time.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
I like their vibe with the logo and stuff, and like the wind turbine look, and some of the graphics they have here is quite cool. I don't know if I have too much more intelligence to say beyond that. It seems like a nice utility.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I don't
know
have anything intelligent to say. I was gonna say I don't know if that company, like, is it sprints or is it unicycles? Sorry, my bad.
Damn jokes.
Yeah.
But for those of you who are doing React Native development, which we know there are some, this might be something interesting to check out if you like using Tailwind and RN is your stack of choice.
There you go. Yeah.
All right. Well, my news of this week is another VS Code fork. I feel like we need like a sound effect for either new VS Code forks or new AI browsers, because that's just keeps the show going. But this one's a little more notable because it's by Google. A fairly big name in the tech world. And they released this as part of their Gemini 3 push. So you've probably seen announcements, headlines around Gemini 3. They announced a bunch of different stuff, new models, new tools, a bunch of different stuff. And this was probably the announcement that affects us the most, because it is very much just an editor that they would love us to use. And there's some background here, because you may recall that back in July, Google had this weird interaction with the company Windsurf, where they kind of acqui-hired / acquired some of the IP of Windsurf for $2.4 billion. It got really weird where they didn't take all of Windsurf. So Windsurf continues to exist, and it's run by Cognition, the people who do Devon. There's a lot of background there. You can listen to old episodes of our show if you want to hear the intricate details of that sort of deal. But the key here is that we know, based off what we've seen, some of the innards of this tool, that at least some of this is based off of Windsurf. Some of the guts share some similar DNA. How much they go together and in what way, we're not really quite sure. But this is basically, presumably, what that team has been working on. And so it is a VS Code fork. So it is an editor that's going to feel extremely familiar because it is actual Visual Studio Code. But of course, like all of these editors, they have their spin on this, why they think they are the best VS Code fork that we should use. And the main thing, there's a couple things we'll talk about, but I think the main thing that they're doing is they have what they call an agent manager. So this sounds, at least at a high level, very much like Agent HQ that GitHub is pushing out, that we talked about last week. But the way it works is that it sits basically at a higher level than your editors. What I mean by that is that you don't have a specific project open when you're in Agent Manager. It kind of spans your projects and your workspaces. So the vision they're painting is that you have your main interface is this Agent Manager. And you might kick off agents in different projects. You might say like, oh, I need this feature on my dashboard, so let me have the agent get on that. Oh, and then, my admin system needs this, so I'm going to kick this off. And then you can see these agents running, and then they have buttons so where you can open the projects in an editor. So the vision they paint is that you're in Agent Manager, that's sort of your mission control. But then one of the features you're like, okay, that's pretty close, but now I need to go in there and actually do some coding or clean this up or get this ready to commit or whatever. So then you press the editor button or Command E, and then you get the editor open, the full VS Code sort of situation, and then you just do your normal code editing from there, and then there's buttons to go back to Agent Manager. And that's the sort of vision they're painting. So you could be, again, I think all of these, we've talked about this on this show before, but all of these AI tools seem to think that we want to be in the matrix where we're just we're just spawning agents. We got them all over the place, and then we've got it all working, coexisting in our heads. That's
They're
the
paying
feature.
somebody a freaking fortune for it.
Yeah.
That's actually one of the two things that I've seen on Twitter about this is one, Gemini 3 is amazing, and people are one-shotting, like, instead of it playing like Pokemon, it made Pokemon in a one-shot or something like that, And then the other one is I ran out of tokens almost immediately when I turned on, this anti-gravity thing. I'm like, oh, okay. So one of those two things is true, or both, I guess. Depends on who you are. Yeah.
So you can use different models in here, but obviously it defaults to Gemini 3. This is clearly a vector for them to try to push Gemini. At the moment, it is completely free. I don't think there's even any way to pay them. I could not see it anyway. But at some point, they do cut you off. So if you if you try to use it enough, they're going to say they're going to shut you down, at least for the pro model or the expensive type stuff that you might want to do.
So when that happens, can you switch to a different, lesser model, or do they just tell you, TS,
you're done?
Go back to writing code.
You're done with AI. Yeah, go back to the manual way.
God, the horror.
I've not personally hit it. I did a few things to test it this morning, so I'm not sure exactly what it does. I don't know, but I will say that my experiences with Gemini 3 Pro were quite good. I had it work on a few things over the last day or so, and I was pretty impressed with it. I mean, like all of these models, it's very subjective, and it takes a long time to know how much they're actually useful. So take that with a grain of salt. But I will say it did seem really good at one-shotting things, because that's always the fun first thing to try. And I had it one-shot a website, and it was I was pretty impressed with it. So I'd say if you want to try Gemini 3, this is a great way of doing it, because you might as well just go in. It's going to feel very comfortable because it is VS Code, and you can just use up your free usage of Gemini 3 Pro and get a sense of what the model can do, and give it a shot.
And then go back to Cursor or Claude.
Yeah,
right.
Probably.
Yeah. There's also, you can use it on CLI, and there's Gemini of course there's Gemini CLI.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think actually along this line, OpenAI came out with a Codex 5.1. Playing with that definitely seems like a good AI. It's hard to know. I mean, at a certain point, it's like, I'm not going to run 5 models and then do a PR review between them. I mean, I ain't got time for that. Like, that's
No. I really appreciate that all these AI companies are like, you can have 10 agents all working on stuff, but I don't have the brain space for that. Me personally, I can't focus on 10 different things at once and remember this agent's doing that and this one's over here doing something else. That's going to take me forever to context switch between.
Yeah, I don't get it either. There's one last feature that I thought was worth commenting on. So they have this concept of artifact files, which sounds like a fancy name, but it's really just markdown files that their agents are kind of writing to, and it's their version of planning. The agents will put things in these markdown files as they go, and sometimes they'll ask you to review it or whatever the case may be. But being Google, one cool thing that you can do is you can comment on these things similarly to how you would comment on a Google Doc as a way of getting feedback to the agent. And I thought that was a really cool idea, because you can just give like contextual information back
I like
to the
that.
agent.
I like that. Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's
Okay.
a super cool idea. The only issue with it is that, and really this applies to the entire editor, it is so buggy. It is buggy as hell. The thing, when I went to use it, I was telling Jack and Paige yesterday, at first I couldn't get in the tool at
Yeah, and I
all.
couldn't either. Yeah.
It would just
Yeah.
completely crash. And
Yeah.
then as I've been using it, sometimes it just goes down, or sometimes there's things that don't work. Sometimes the
Yeah.
style. I mean, like I can't get over how. I mean, this is Google. You think they would just they. I mean, they must have had a deadline for Gemini, and they're like, Gemini's going out, so we're the editor is a part of this release no matter what, and they threw it out there no matter what because. I mean, it's at times borderline unusable, especially stuff related to the planning. Like I was trying to figure out how the commenting worked and get some examples for this podcast so I'd have something to talk about. And eventually I found the commenting thing, but like I could not tell what like was the agent taking it into account. The whole UX around it was really kind of messy. So I bring it up in the show because I think it's a cool concept. I think that idea of commenting contextually is a really good idea, but I can't tell you that whether it actually works or improves things because the tool is just so bad right now.
Yeah. The one thing as I use these agents more and more, there's definitely times where it's like I watch it talking, doing its work and all that sort of stuff. And there'll be something where it's like, oh, that's not quite right, but I don't want to stop you
Yeah,
because
yep.
that's gonna be like a whole thing, you know. But this one minor, and now I gotta remember it, and it's like, oh man, okay, right, So it's like it's a whole new like style of to doing, kind of thing. It's like you are on a
Yeah.
roll there, you're cooking, and I didn't want to stop you on your roll, but that text should be
Yeah.
different, That.
Well, it gets at what Paige said too is that and I think we're all in agreement on this show that I like working on one task at a time. And I think that's not even a controversial statement. I think a lot of psychological studies have shown that people
Yes.
do better when they are on task versus trying to manage multiple things.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, Jack, that's the most common thing to me is that I've kind of been experimenting more with Cursor's composer models, and because they're so much faster, I find that lots of
So
times
good.
that's really nice because I do lose focus when I set Claude on something and it goes off, and then I have that conundrum, like you said, where I want to interrupt it with small things, but I'm like, is this enough to actually interrupt it, or should I have the next thing? And
Yeah.
so that's kind of where I'm at with all of this. I can't live the agent HQ, agent manager lifestyle. I don't think that's for me.
No.
Maybe I'll get there though. We'll see.
I don't know. But I'm with you. Like I want to do one thing and get through that task and know that's done and in PR or whatever and off my plate before I want to focus on the next thing. And that's just humans are the bottleneck apparently that the AI companies are going to have to get through next because we can't do multiple things well. There have been so many studies that say people are terrible at multitasking, and it's true. Everybody's less efficient. Context switching is hard. It takes time. So even though they can do this, it doesn't necessarily mean that we will be able to take advantage of it and get the benefits of it that these companies, I think, are imagining or hoping we will.
I'm waiting for, and someone's probably already building this. There's going to be a time where we can just point our entire Jira backlog at something like this. So you'll just you'll go in your agent HQ or your agent manager, you'll connect it to Jira, say take all the items that are, have this tag or whatever, and just go for it. Just get workspace all of them. I'll check in 10 hours after you've spent $500 approaching this backlog, and maybe you actually do knock out a few of them. If someone's not already building this, there's my product idea for the product managers at Antigravity and Cursor and Windsurf
Yeah.
listening to this.
It's like
I mean, we
monkeys
all,
with typewriters.
Yeah.
I'll kind of think about that, and immediately you're sort of horror struck, is like, oh man, how many jobs are we going to lose? Blah, 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 blah. At the same time, but there's also like in every company I've ever been at, there's like some legacy software that
Yeah.
nobody cares about that just needs updating because it's got 5 high value customers that are still on it, and we still haven't migrated them, right? And you know having stuff like this can actually offload a lot of that work, And so you could just be like, okay, I'm going to go and spend a day agentically fixing that thing up and then,
Yeah.
back into the main line. And yeah, there's value there, right? Yeah.
So you're saying, Jack, that one COBOL developer who comes in for 2 weeks a year to maintain the mainframe is going to be out of a job potentially.
I guess potentially, they're going to have to
Hey,
go back to the beach. Yeah.
hey, I wrote COBOL
Right.
for a few years. I don't know how much I've told
Really?
these stories on this
Oh
show,
God.
but yeah.
I've
So
never written COBOL.
No,
It's
me neither.
the one language I've never written, and I'm not bummed about it.
I wonder how I feel like AI would probably be quite good at COBOL, but that the real thing that so not to dive too deep into this, but like the 15-second version of this is that the company ran everything on an IBM mainframe. Like they had been using they bought huge IBM mainframes forever ago. Everything ran on it. And IBM created this magic way that Java apps could talk to legacy COBOL systems. And this company bought in full force. So they had this bridge between Java and COBOL. And so eventually I migrated to working on the front end of stuff. So of course you'd have a front end that sits on top of your Java plus COBOL back end, which is eventually what led me to this podcast and such. But I did have to delve into the COBOL world, and it really does feel like stepping back into the 70s
Oh yeah. I mean, if you want to
or
like
earlier, honestly.
a taste of that for anybody who hasn't any experience in this area, it's not even ASCII. Like we work in ASCII. If you don't even think about the fact that we work in ASCII, they work in EBCDIC, an entirely different standard for encoding characters.
Also, if you use more than 80 characters in a line, it's a compiler error.
That's true because a punch card only has 80 columns.
And
Yeah.
so at times you have to get very creative with things like names and
Right?
indentation.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
fun
No,
times.
yeah. No vowels in naming. Debugging actually involved finding real live bugs in the machine way, way, way back in the day.
Right? Yes, actual
Yeah.
moths. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we've strayed
The
off
retro
topic.
podcast continues.
So, Antigravity, yet another VS Code
Yes.
fork. Like I said, it's free, so I would check it out just to get your free Gemini 3 Pro usage. Try one-shotting some things, have some fun. It can be a good time. But we have some other fun stuff for our bonus
Yeah.
news. So why don't we get into that? All right, who wants to go first? I know we got a lot of small things here.
Yeah, I've got Angular V21 release video. So if you haven't seen this thing, it is incredibly unique. I gotta say, like I actually know the guy who became the main DevRel for Angular, Mark Texan, good friend of mine, and he's kind of pinged me. He was like, "You gotta check this out," and I checked it out, and it's like he swung for the fences on this thing because
Yeah,
at the end of the day, like I think Angular is sort of stuck in this like kind of they do the same thing over and over and over again. They had to figure out a way to like really get out there and so yeah, this video, boy, it is cool.
yeah. Even if you're not an Angular person at all, and we might talk about Angular 21 next week. It came out like hours ago as we're recording this, so we haven't had a chance to look over it or anything. Other than this video, which I would it'll be in the show notes. You should click it and just kind of peruse through it because the basic idea is that he puts himself in a bunch of video game characters, but with incredibly high production value. And
My
the
God,
first
yeah.
thing I thought is like, man, to have Google's budget to pull off something like this because
Right.
it is just wild for a release of a JavaScript framework. And we have this like 15-minute video with all sorts of video games rendered in here in a totally
The fighting
custom
game
way.
one is hilarious at the end. Yeah, I don't know if you guys got there, but like it's great. It's really
Not
really
yet.
funny. Yeah.
No, I've just skimmed it because I just learned about it right before we started recording, so I got to watch the thing in its
And
full here
I
afterwards.
gotta be honest. I told Mark this. It kind of got me wanting to try out Angular 21, and he's like, "Yeah, that's exactly that's what I was going for." And you're like, "Okay,
Yeah.
yeah."
All right, what's next?
Yeah. So, in other not so great news, if you were on the internet this week, you probably noticed that some of your regular websites were down. Cloudflare had a massive outage, not dissimilar to the one AWS had a few weeks prior.
Front-end-fire was down. That's how I learned about it, actually. I was going to look up something for the
Yes.
podcast, and it was
Our
down also.
our website was down, X was down, OpenAI was down.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
At
that makes
the
sense. Okay.
at the height of the outage, about 20% of the internet that Cloudflare hosts was down. So
Which is a
I don't know
lot.
how, yeah, I don't know how many sites that is, but I host my websites on Cloudflare. We obviously we host Front End Fire on Cloudflare. A lot of people trust Cloudflare with their website hosting. So yeah, on November 18th, there was an outage, and the co-founder and creator of Cloudflare actually wrote up a really well-written post-mortem that he released after it had happened, just explaining what had happened. And it was not a cyber attack. It was not a DDoS attack. It was not malicious code. It was a change to one of their database systems permissions, which
Yes.
caused, yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Thank
It was a
God that wasn't use
database
effect.
change.
Thank God.
It
Oh
wasn't use
God.
effect.
It
Yeah,
wasn't use effect this time.
it wasn't.
Okay.
So what happened was that they changed one database systems permissions, which caused that database to output multiple entries into a feature file. And this feature file doubled in size and then propagated to all the machines in the Cloudflare network that it uses to cache and serve websites. So the software that reads that file, it has a limit to the size of the feature file that it will accept, and the limit was below the size of the new feature file that had doubled overnight. And so it failed, and it just kept failing, kept propagating to all of the other machines on the network. And it took them about 3 hours to identify the issue and deploy the fix. And by 6 hours later, everything was back to normal. But for that 6 hour time frame, service was degraded or non-existent. So there you go.
Yeah. It happens. Yeah.
Yeah,
It does.
at least they didn't call anybody out. I wonder. I always wonder, just out of curiosity, was it somebody that did this, or was it just some system, some release that wasn't reviewed? Obviously, they're not going to get into that sort of detail, but the curious part of me always wonders.
But yeah, and they did a good post-mortem. Like, he really went in depth on what exactly happened and why it failed, and the different systems that were involved. And it seemed like he had genuine remorse for how Cloudflare had failed the internet community at large. But also, that's what happens when you are a hosting company and a lot of people depend on you, is that eventually they haven't had an outage like this since 2019. That was also noted. So they've had 6 good years where they've managed to keep the wheels on. So,
Yeah, it's good.
if it was going
No,
to
and
happen,
Cloudflare is great. Great program.
Yeah, exactly. This can happen to anybody, anytime. I do like in their blog post, and so this is a quote. You've reached a certain scale when you're allowed to apologize to the internet, because they have,
yes.
we are sorry for the impact to our customers and to the internet in general.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to
Right.
be, you have to be pretty successful in your scaling if you screw up and you have to apologize to the whole internet.
Right.
This is pretty good.
I'm sure there's a lot of legal stuff that goes down about this, but that's
Yeah.
it's interesting to me that it took a little while to identify it, because normally when you do this kind of stuff, like if you roll a release like that, or some sort of change, like the
Mm-hmm.
policy is usually you have to be, in DMs, so that if things go sideways, which they probably did pretty quickly, that like they're gonna be like, hey, what changed? And you're gonna be
Yeah,
like,
Yeah.
and
oh,
can
by
we
the
roll
way,
it? And usually you have a
I put this.
defined rollout
Yeah.
plan when
Yeah.
a defined rollback plan when you push something like this out, like you're ready for. And clearly some of
Yeah.
that either did not happen or did not work.
Yeah.
Well,
It may not, just not at the database level.
what was kind of interesting was that at the same time that Cloudflare started having service degradation issues, their status page also went down, which is not hosted on Cloudflare. So that was kind of a red herring, that they thought maybe it was a cyber attack of some kind, because that
Oh,
is completely separate but also went down at the same time. And it didn't propagate to all of this Cloudflare nodes at the same time either. So it was weird because they showed a graph and you could see like massive amount of errors spiked, and then suddenly everything was back online, and then 5 minutes later it propagated to another node cluster, and then suddenly it started going, errors started climbing again. So it wasn't just like blanket rollout to every node at the same time. It took minutes and tens of minutes to kind of start moving across the network. But that was one of the reasons that it took them a little while to figure out, is this somebody DDoSing us, or is it actually just some change that we made and hey, everything's back to normal, but now it's not again. So
some changes probably seemed innocuous, to be honest.
Yeah,
Like they
I'm
probably
sure.
changed, like they thought nobody ever used this account. We can go and change the permissions on it and then whatever. And
Yep. I have
Yep.
to say, I have no desire to work in DevOps in any way,
oh,
but I will
No.
say you will never feel more alive than you will debugging a major production outage.
Yes.
Like when you're on the call or on the line for something like that, man, your heart rate is up. You're just
You're
it's
running on
quite the
adrenaline.
environment to be in, and I can only imagine, the Slack conversations, the calls going on to figure this thing
yeah, because
out.
you've got. It's actually very interesting because it's like this almost like NASA level like control room kind of thing.
Coordination.
And at the point where it's like they figure out who's the person like who's going to handle it, like they like firewall around you. So like because
Yeah.
everybody's trying to tell you this and that. Oh, I did blah 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 blah, and you're like, I'm just trying to debug right now. Shut up, and get out of my way. And they I think they did the same thing in NASA. It was like, this guy talks, nobody else talks.
Hmm.
Go kind of thing.
Yeah. You've never felt more alive, that's for
Well, yeah, but
sure.
Oh
man,
yeah,
hearts
yeah,
hearts jumping out of your chest
yeah.
because you're like every second is like whatever, millions. I mean, in the company I was at, like it wasn't like that, but like I can imagine that. Yeah, Cloudflare was like whoa.
Yeah, I've worked on internal systems before where only people within the company were using the platform, and it was only from typical business working hours, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And still, when production went down, you just,
Dun dun
yeah,
dun.
you
Yeah.
couldn't focus on anything else
Yep.
except how to fix it.
In less, I guess, urgent news, we have Firefox has an announcement related to AI. Of course, they announced that they're building an AI window. So we have the blog post in the show notes if you want to check it out. There's not much here though. They're kind of pushing something that they're working on, and it's behind a wait list. So you can sign up for the wait list. I put my name on it. They have in here that say we're focused on making the best browser, which means recognizing that everyone has different needs. For some, AI is part of everyday life. For others, it's useful only occasionally, and many are simply curious about what it can offer, but unsure where to start. Regardless of your choice, with Firefox, you're in control.
Okay. Well, Firefox,
Yeah,
you should bump up
like,
TJ in the list because he's a huge advocate for Firefox.
I'm on the list. If you're on the Firefox team and listening to this, I will
Get TJ.
100% talk about it on this show. Get
Exactly.
me in.
Yep.
I guess I'm just curious to see how they're going to approach it that's different than how everybody else has approached AI in the browser to this point.
Yeah, I don't know. There's absolutely no details from a tech perspective. All they say is that it's opt-in. So, which is good because we were talking earlier before we recorded about some of these AI tools that are opt-out, which is
Yeah.
not great. So that's cool, but who knows how useful this is. But if you want to get on that wait list, the link in the show notes.
There you go.
And then I think last on our list, Paige, we have another survey.
Yes,
Oh my
we
God.
love surveys. We love developer surveys. The State of React survey 2025 just opened. So
Good. Okay.
if you feel strongly about React and want to tell everybody how you use transition effect for everything, get in there. Tell us your favorite frameworks, tell us your favorite effects, tell us your hooks,
And
tell
of
us all
course,
that good stuff.
say Front End Fire is your favorite podcast.
Yes.
Did we get a checkbox? I'm looking right now.
I don't know. I didn't have a chance to check that.
Okay. There you
Oh,
go.
okay.
Okay. That's
But
like the
vote for
first thing I
us.
jumped to. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't see a checkbox for us. I don't know how we
Oh, write
get
us
behind
in.
these people. Like,
I know. I actually, like, I'm kind of surprised he hasn't shown up in my DMs because
There,
the
oh,
guy that
no,
runs
we're
those
there.
surveys.
We're
Oh,
We
there we
are?
go.
sorry to interrupt. We're there. I just missed it.
Oh, you missed us.
Well, there's a lot of
Man.
podcasts, Jack. I get to
Okay,
skim like
yeah.
on the fly while we're recording.
Thump, 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 thump. It's
Anyways, you were
production
saying I
time.
cut
Oh
you
my
off because I was
God.
excited to see our checkbox.
No, no. Well, the cool thing about all these surveys is always that like you can. It's a great place to like farm ideas. It's like, oh wow, like there's a library that like a lot of people are using that I've never heard of before, and oh, here's this cool feature and that whatever. So
Yep.
yeah, that's the kind of like fill it out, for your own self, but like you're gonna get a lot of information just from that.
Yeah.
Yep. And check our checkbox while you're going through it. It helps
Yes.
support
We
the
made
show.
it.
Exactly. For the show.
All right. Well, the checkbox is making us happy. Why don't we talk about what else is?
Woohoo!
Paige, what is making you happy this week?
I am going to say the upcoming holidays are making me happy this week because Thanksgiving's coming up for those of us in the US next week. It's honestly a little bit hard to believe because I don't
Yeah.
know where the rest of the year is gone. But at the same time, I am really looking forward to going home, seeing my family. We're going to do my family for Thanksgiving this year and then my husband's family for Christmas. So I'm just looking forward to seeing them. I haven't seen them since Christmas of last year in person. So yeah, I'm just looking forward to spending some time with them, taking a little time off from work. Yeah, it's gonna be nice to see friends, family, all the people that I don't get to see regularly back in St. Louis. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Nice.
You've had a holiday vibe going. You got the holiday lights last week.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
holidays.
Are you a
gotta say-
decorating your own house type of person, Paige?
We are. Typically we wait until right after Thanksgiving to put up the Christmas tree. So probably maybe the weekend after we'll get on that for sure. But yeah,
How many
I love the
how many
Christmas tree.
boxes of Christmas stuff do you have?
So we have, I would say, two boxes. One that's all the ornaments.
Yeah, it's amateur hour.
Yeah, and then one that's like the lights and everything else that kind of decorates around, little pillows and whatever, tea towels.
Jack, where are you at?
I think we're probably 7 at least.
Okay.
I'd say.
I was going to say, I
Yeah.
think we're at 6. So
What's
it
the
depends
tree?
on, is the Christmas tree count as a box?
No, the Christmas tree has its own tree bag,
Yeah.
so the Christmas
it's not a
tree
box.
counts as a third.
This is like,
Big
the
one.
tchotchkes that you put around the house.
Yeah.
But my next door neighbor definitely, like, she destroys us all. She's like that full on like live, laugh, love thing going on. And she's
Yeah.
got like, I don't know, like 13 boxes for like every holiday. And her husband's like, oh my God, geez.
Yeah, that's my cousin. Like you cannot you know that house is Christmas when you see it from the outside, and then you go in and it's just more Christmas. There's so much Christmas in that house.
Awesome. Jack, what's making you happy this week?
So, guitar gadget this week. This is a new tuner that I got. And can't really see much, but it's called a Strobo Clip HD. So there's a whole bunch of clip-on tuners you can get for your guitar or ukulele or whatever. This one's a little novel in that this is based on a strobe thing. So back in the day, like Eddie Van Halen and all those guys, they used a strobe tuner to get a really like amazingly tuned guitar. And what this thing does is it uses the strobe effect. So if you think about like a train shooting by, and sometimes it looks like the wheels aren't moving at all, they're just kind of like stuck in place, but actually they're moving like really, really fast. And this is because of like the frame rate. So that's what they do. They basically have this spinning wheel and a little LED behind it, and the LED runs at the wavelength that string should be. And if it's tuned, then you can actually just like it looks like it's stopped in time. Like the wheel doesn't move even though it's like spinning really fast. So they basically did the same thing digitally, and it's really cool. It's just an interesting way to like tune a guitar. It's actually pretty fast, but it's like you're trying to get this wheel to stop spinning. So kind of neat.
Cool.
That kind of breaks my brain a little bit
Okay, that's
to
fine.
think about.
Maybe I'll take I'll try and take a video of it, and maybe you can like make
Yeah,
make
that'd be
more
cool.
sense. Yeah.
All right. What's making me happy this week is a book that I had a coworker recommended me that is pretty amazing. It's called Dungeon Crawler Carl, which I had to make sure to slow down to say because it's a little bit of a tongue twister. But it's a fun read. It's hard to give the premise too much because part of the fun of the book is chapter 1 is kind of wild, and so I don't want to take that fun away from anybody reading it. But the basic premise is our protagonist, Carl, ends up in a dungeon, as the name sort of implies. And the dungeon is basically like a video game world in real life. And you're tasked from going to level 1 of this dungeon down to there are 18 levels in this dungeon, and every so many days one level collapses, so you have to make your way down. But it's very much in the style of an RPG, Dungeons and Dragons type situation. But there's also a Hunger Games element to it because it is very much, if you die, you die. Most of the people in this dungeon are going to die, but it's just really fun. If you're an RPG fan at all, it's a lit RPG, which is the kind of new category name for these types of books. But if you like that sort of thing, you would probably like this. It's not too long. It is part of a series, so I think there's gonna be 8 and 7 of them are out or something like that.
Nice.
I finished the first book last night and it was great. And there's a cat that's part of the story that's pretty amazing. It's very cool.
Cool. Really? I love that idea.
Yeah, also Legends and Lattes is another one, like another series in this area.
Yeah, it might be. Like I said, the lit RPG thing is because my wife, who reads a bajillion books, told me about this type of book that exists. This genre is becoming more popular, but this is one of the bigger names in that world, and I don't know, I might have to read more of them because this was very good. Now I got to figure out how I finished the first one, and so now I got to figure out how I'm going to get my hands on the rest of the series.
There you go.
Does your library have them? Or no?
Yes.
I got book 1 through Libby, so I'm assuming the other ones are, but I don't know if I can wait or not. That's the.
My wife really, it doesn't seem like her kind of book, but she loved Legends and Lattes, and they describe it, I think that's the book that they talked about as a warm hug of a book. It's just very heartwarming, and it doesn't seem like it would be, but it is. And yeah, so. This
one at least is the vibe is very humorous. There's a little bit of just tongue in cheek type of thing. It's your typical people are dying all over the place, but yet it still seems fun. The vibe is it's
it's
a lot
that
of murder
kind of book.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of the murder mystery sometimes too, where it's you sort of forget that the whole thing's about murder because it's just kind of we're a couple characters, we're having a fun time looking into this, and this book has a similar vibe. It's talking about very dark things, but yet the atmosphere is very light and comical.
Nice.
All right, well, I think that is another episode. This was a fun one. We had a bunch of cool things to talk about. If you like it, if you enjoyed listening to this, you might want to check out some of the links in our show notes because we have a Discord channel where we talk about some of this sort of stuff. We are on pretty much all of the social medias. You can find those links down there. We are on YouTube if you're more of a video person, if you want to see things like Jack's tuner, because we'll on the video portion, we can hold them up or you can see what we're wearing. Yeah. That as well. But I think that is another episode. So thanks everybody for joining, and we will see you next week.
Yeah. See you next time.